Hey, this is Donna, the Transdimensional Twin Flame and the Afterlife Artist. I am here with session 20 of the MELAFON journals. A MELAFON being an extraterrestrial that I met during a blind remote viewing session in January 2026. I actually had two sessions with him. The first one was blind, and the second one was a deliberate reconnect to this being. I got information that was accurate about what he looked like. It was sort of symbolic. It's not like I drew him looking exactly like himself, but I did draw him as a unicorn. I got that he was a very, very magical, enlightened being that was very fun to be around. It was one of the most fun sessions that I've ever had, and I wasn't sure that it wasn't a real unicorn that I was looking at, because it could have been, only thing we knew is that it could be any kind of non-human intelligence. That could be literally anything. So I didn't assume it was an extraterrestrial, but it was possible. So I drew him with a horn, and it turns out that he has 3 horns. And I drew him with a red eye, which isn't normally what I would choose, but part of remote viewing in the way that I was taught, which was transdimensional mapping, is that you have a lot of colored pens and pencils so that you just intuitively choose the color that you're going to work with. And a lot of times that's not random. That's something that relates to what you're looking at. So it does matter what colors you even write in, what you choose. It feels kind of random at the time. It feels like you're just doing some kind of automatic writing or automatic drawing, because you are. It's all tapping into the same source of subconscious information, the field that we're all capable of tapping into that all the time. It's there. All this information is just floating around, waiting for us to access it. And I also drew his ship accurately. I described him accurately according to the witnesses. He actually was part of the famous UFO encounter at Virginia, Brazil in 1996. And it's depicted and investigated in the movie documentary Moment of Contact, parts 1 and 2. I still haven't seen part 2. But I didn't know anything about this event when I did this session. And of course, I didn't know who I was looking at. So you don't have to believe that this is who it is. It's just good information either way. I find that this channeled information is helpful for me. And I'm going to make these sessions public if they are helpful for other people. Sometimes they may be private for me, because he said that if I wanted to connect with him as one of my guides every day, I could. So I usually get up in the morning and don't really do much else. I just get up and stay as close to not getting into my left brain thinking mind and staying more in theta state until I can channel with him every morning. So he's also come to me as a green orb. He told me from the beginning, I asked him if he could come visit, and he said, yes, it'll happen. Like, he was very, very definite. And because of this good connection that I had on this session, I believed him. And a few days later, when I was recording this journal, I saw a green orb float in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, and it stopped me because I saw it on the video while I was reading back the journal, like I do right now. And I was like, well, that's weird. And I tried to replicate it later, because I'm sitting right here next to this lamp. But you can, there's no light coming through the window. This is my window. It's covered. There's no other light source. And I have tried to replicate this orb thing. It was big. And it was green. It didn't look like lens flare. And it kind of came in, it peeked in, and then went away. And the thing is, it happened twice. I didn't even see the first one at first. I got the second one. And then when I went back and looked at the video, it took me a couple of days. And then I realized it had happened twice. So I hadn't even seen the first one. And I never could get the lighting to replicate this effect again, so I don't think it was the lighting. So this episode, or this entry into the journal, is sort of about that. That's why I'm giving you this background. And I'll probably have to stop and give a little bit more background as we go along. I'm basically asking how I don't even remember what I said to start with. Something about how I can perceive him and the other guides and orbs and my Chris and spirit. I am a twin flame, so my twin flame is Chris, and he is in the spirit world. That's how I got connected to all of these other beings. I mean, I was always connected, I think, but I didn't know that. So when he transitioned, he was my gateway into more knowledge about myself, my mission, and my guides. Twin flames always have a divine mission, and we are doing ours. This right here that we're doing right now is part of our mission. So, in the interest of, practicing this communication myself and remembering what I've channeled, because I do forget what he says. As soon as, I remember vaguely what he says. I'm awake when we're doing this, but I don't really remember. So it's good for me to go over these again anyway. So I'm doing this for, but also for anybody else who might need this help. Sorry, I just accidentally stopped that last video. My hand slipped, so I'm going to this is part 2. I'm just going to record both together. So let's just get on to it, and I'll read the journal. Okay. Like I always say, I'm visually impaired, so I'll show you the journal page, but then I'm going to have to read it, so I'm going to have to put it closer, and you won't be able to see everything on the screen. So this is the wrong session. Okay. This is session 20. So I said, "Hi, MELAFON. Is now a good time to talk?" There's the page. He says, "Hello, human." That's his little joke. "Let's go." I said, "You came to see me as a green orb before. Can you do that or something else to let me know you're here?" He said, "Yes. Just trust that it will happen like I said during our remote viewing session. Relax and be observant. You'll know." So I said, "Is it difficult to do that?" On his end. I often wonder what it takes for my Chris to appear and do all the things that he does here. And he says, "It takes planning and some focused energy. Sometimes technology that we have on our side of the veil." Next page. He said, "But as you know, there is no veil. The veil is the heaviness of your own limiting beliefs and programs. When you break out of those and expand your awareness, you see through the veil." I said, "Yes, I know. But what's the thing that you feel I could let go or work on now that would open me up to next level perception?" He said, "Number 1 is self-doubt. You are much more confident than you used to be, but still some doubt lingers. You didn't grow up seeing through the veil. You saw energy always. You were channeling and always psychic with amazing levels of intuition. Now looking back on it, you realize how accurate you were and what a mistake it was to listen to others without these abilities. You gave them too much credit and yourself not enough. You're connected. You've connected that. You've corrected that, which is great. You now trust your gifts above all else, far above those without gifts or who are still living in a limited egoic way. Kudos. But there's layers and layers of this. You trust because after all your experiences, it would be illogical not to. To still not trust yourself or Chris and the divine feels disrespectful to you. You honor them and yourself because you know how much work it took for those in the other dimensions to do these things for you. This is huge progress and necessary for what's next. What's next is physical or holographic contact that appears physical. You had to get to this level of trust and experience to open up to even more solid experiences. Me coming as the green orb was just a little taste of that. You already know, Chris and your guides don't want to alarm you with a sudden appearance that startles you badly. Your visual impairment is a factor. Chris and the rest of us are very careful and protective of you. But after last year in 2025, especially, you are more ready. The private orb show you received in December was an opening to more. You understand that it was a large coordinated effort on your behalf. Not everyone gets that. That's how much we are working with you and here with you. Which is true. I'll tell you about the orb experience just in brief when we're done. I had a crazy orb experience by myself where nobody else was there. Which is not, I was on a trip with a bunch of orb people that I call Orb Club with Chris Bledsoe and his family. So I had been with people all week, and then all of a sudden, when I was by myself without my phone, they put on the craziest choreographed show for me in the sky that I just could not believe. And I realized I had seen it in a shamanic journey in 2019. So that's a whole other video. I don't have time to go into it here, but that's what he was referring to. That one event opened me up so much more, because then after I saw that, I thought, you know what? If I just see my name written in the sky one day, or a big giant portrait of Chris or something, I'm not going to be surprised. Anything is possible. After what I saw at the beach with the orbs in the daytime in the sky just for me, I will not be as surprised by anything that I see after that. It was another level of opening, right? So that's what he's talking about. So then I said, that was the coolest, most amazing thing I've ever seen. I'd love it if it was just the first of many such amazing experiences. And he said, it is. So now, don't doubt that. You have a tendency to have an experience and fully know it, but yet wonder if it'll ever happen again. This is not a fluke. You have an ongoing relationship with the divine feminine, the goddess, your Chris, your family and guides in spirit, the orbs, and of course me, meaning MELAFON. There's nothing accidental about it. There will be plenty more. You'll look back on these days as just the beginning. So do not allow doubt a foothold. Like Chris told you before, it is inappropriate to play small at your level. You do not need anyone else's approval or confirmation. No one was with you when the orb show in December happened, and it was so spectacular you can't doubt it even for a minute. You don't have a video to show of it, but that doesn't matter. Your life is magical because you and Chris are. This is meant for you and created by you. It seems rare because it is. Not many are as pure as souls as you two are. You fully deserve and have created all of this yourselves. You say you never saw Chris in the physical, and we understand that pain and the barrier that you feel there, which is true. In the physical, my twin flame and I never got to meet. We were long distance friends, and by the time we decided to start dating, it was the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, and he didn't have a car, and I'm legally blind and I don't drive, and I was also trying to move again. It was a very stressful time, and he ended up getting a car and doing all the things he needed to do to come down here, but it was too late and he transitioned before he could make it. So that's what I'm talking about here when I say I never saw him in the physical. And it seems to be a barrier to me seeing him in the non-physical. I will see him, but not standing here looking like Chris, not like he's a solid person. So that's what we're referring to here. So he said, but remember, The past is not fixed, and you have seen him. Even when he was physical, you saw him in your shared and lucid dreams, which is true. We had the same dream at the same time, on the same day that we were hanging out doing the same thing. So it was a shared dream, and that's when we started talking even more deeply, because we realized something deep was going on here, and it felt like a first date, and it was. That was our first date in the astral. We were being prepared to communicate in the astral, and we had no idea that we would need to learn to do this, because that was going to be our lives going forward, after he transitioned across the veil. We were meeting up in the astral the whole time. So that's what he's referring to. So he says, even though he was physical, because at the time Chris was here on Earth, he says, even though he was physical, you saw him in your shared and lucid dreams, the same way you saw your cats before you got them, and others in your family before you met them, which is true. I also saw us getting our two cats in a dream before I even knew I was going to look to adopt cats, and we were both there, and we chose them, and when I saw them on the adoption site, I knew it was them, and it was. So this has happened to me many times, where I'll see somebody in my dreams that turns out to come into my real life. So then he says, you even had that shamanic journey in 2019 showing you the beach party for Chris Bledsoe and your Chris and you alone on the beach bedroom balcony, where you saw your choreographed orb show. The thing I was just talking about, where the orbs did crazy stuff in the sky for me, that's something I saw in a shamanic journey in 2019. I remembered it when I got home. That's a whole other story, and I'll be doing another video about that. So that's what he's referring to. So he says, see, you've seen things precognitively, awake and asleep, that come to pass. The cats came into your life physically. The beach party happened. You dreamed of an orb in your hands that could change color and shape when you asked. And now there are orbs in your life, and they are conscious and interacting with you. Which is true. When I was a kid, I dreamed I had an orb in my palms. It was in my hands. It looked like plasma. It changed colors just like the orbs do, all those colors, and it would morph into different shapes whenever I wanted it to. I never forgot that dream because it was very interesting to me, and I wanted it to be real. So he says, by the same logic, you have been seeing Chris in dreams your entire life. Although the first instance you know for sure was your shared dream that was your first date in the astral that I just mentioned. So take this as proof that he will also appear to you in a more solid way. You see the pattern now? You see important things and people in astral meetings before you meet them in your waking physical life. It is just how things are for you. Just accept that as your normal and open it up more. And I said, I just remembered Chris Bledsoe and my other Orb Club friends were in my dream last night, which was true. I didn't remember that till I was doing this journal. And he said, there you go. Expect to see them again. And I said, thank you, MELAFON. So I know this was very, was a personal, this was a personal entry about me and my experiences. But I'm just going to go ahead and make it public because there's a lot of good information in here for anybody who's going through any kind of spiritual awakening or spiritually transformative experience, or, anything where you're seeing something that people would call paranormal. It really isn't paranormal. The fact that people have called things paranormal or unusual is part of why we've been programmed to think that they don't happen. Like, this isn't normal. It's beyond normal, When this becomes normal is when we're all going to be able to do it even better. The fact that we consider it unusual is part of our barrier. It's really our birthright that we can do all these things. And the more we do it, the less unusual it is. I'm still blown away by these experiences. They never get old to me. I absolutely cherish and am blown away by every single one. But yet, I also have the feeling that it's not that weird anymore. Like, I don't ever expect these things. They always sneak up on me, which is how it should be. So it feels magical, and I don't take it for granted. And yet I kind of do in a way, because even though I never expect the next one, when it does happen, I will be like, wow, I guess I should expect these to keep happening because they keep on happening. Um, so the more it happens, the more you just see this as your normal life, and then the more it can happen, you know? So that's what he's trying to tell me here, is not to doubt myself, because I have plenty of evidence that goes back spanning my entire life that this was just my life. It doesn't really matter what other people's lives are like. It doesn't matter that other people aren't having all these experiences like I am. Some people are, but most people are not. And none of that matters. What matters is my experience. This is my life, and I'm co-creating it with my Chris and my guides, just the same way that everybody else is co-creating their lives. Most people don't know that. A lot of people don't believe it, and if you try to tell them that, a lot of people take offense, because unless their lives are going perfectly, they don't want to take responsibility for co-creating it. Why would you want to co-create your own pain? Like, if you hate your life, why would you want somebody to tell you that you made it that way? And that's why I don't tell people that to their face. Like, it's not something that most people want to hear, especially if they're going through something difficult. It's an art form to try to tell people about the fact that they have power in their lives, without making them feel like you're blaming them. It's not blame, it's just taking responsibility. Once you understand that you have this power of manifestation, and that that's how reality just works, you can take charge of it, like I did. I didn't find this information offensive at all. I found it exciting to think that I might have some control over my life, because before that point, I felt like a victim. I was, as I almost died when I was born. I had a near-death experience. I am legally blind because of that. I have no vision in this eye and very limited vision in the other eye. Even not just how far I can see, but also the peripheral vision is very limited. So when my guides like MELAFON and Chris tell me that they don't want to scare me, that's part of it, because I'll be here, and I know Chris is here, but I'm not used to seeing anybody else walking around in my apartment. So out of the corner of my eye, sometimes I'll see something and I'll jump. Even though I want him to show up and I want him to be here, there's still a part of me that just, my natural reaction is to be startled. Because for me to see these things, they have to do it in a certain way. Like the orbs at the beach that appeared in the daytime when I was the only one around. They did something so crazy that it got my attention. There was no way I could miss it. They know I'm legally blind, and they made it to where I could see them. There was only a small part of sky that was visible between the two houses and the trees. They put themselves there, and they did so many they did maneuvers that were insane. They weren't natural, right? And they did several different maneuvers together that I just couldn't doubt. They were like, ta-da, do you see this? And I'm like, whoa. It was like a thank you note, for the fact that I had followed my guidance from the goddess and called that trip together and channeled her image onto some t-shirts so that her energy can go to more people, because she gathered us all together for the orbs. We saw that green orb that Chris Bledsoe eventually saw a code number on the side of it. I got videos of that same orb on my channel. You can go look. They were thanking me for following my guidance and making that trip happen, because it was important. Chris Bledsoe changed his plans this year because of that green orb. He's looking to crack the code of that orb, because he knows it's a communication, and he was waiting for it. I didn't know that was going to happen, but I had seen it before the trip. The goddess, I channel with her, and she showed me the orbs streaming green codes down on all of us on the beach. There was a stream of green alphanumeric codes, just like in the Matrix. They were green, and they were numbers in that same style that turned out to be on the side of that orb. You know how the numbers on there, or whatever that is, it looks like numbers. It looks like an old digital clock with block numbers or letters. You can make any number or letter basically out of those blocks. And that's what it looked like. So I saw the purpose of the trip before we went on the trip. And she gave us a message before we went on the trip that I shared with the group. So she had shown me the purpose of this trip before we went on it. And I'm the one that, invited everybody on the trip. I thought it would be a great idea to watch the State of the World Forum from and watch our teachers on there. And Chris was one of them. So I think the Orbs show they gave me in December on the last day of our trip when I was alone, for the only time I was alone, was their thank you note to me, because it felt like a finale. It felt like I was watching fireworks in the sky, but it wasn't fireworks, it was orbs. And my Chris, in spirit, was sitting right next to me telling me to just be quiet and, hang out with him. He said, we haven't hung out at all during this trip. Can you please hang out with me? And let's just talk. And then he was trying to get me in the right spot so I would look at those orbs that were about to show up. Anyway, this was cool for me because it gave me a lot of, I know all these things, but the way he put them together, he's like, do you realize all the people that you've met in your dreams before you ever met them? And that you've seen Chris plenty of times. You just didn't see him in the way that you thought. You were being prepared to see him in the astral, just like you're going to see him now. There's no difference. I'm awake. I'm asleep. Who cares? I can see things when I'm awake and asleep. The orbs prove that. I've been asking for that for years. And then the orbs showed up and proved that I can. So now that just opens up more and more. So hopefully if somebody else that's watching this is having a journey where you're kind of doubting things, like things happen to you, but then you're like, maybe it was a fluke. Maybe this will help you trust that there's more for you. All right. Thank you so much for watching.